I often hear people say that nothing ever happens in Iowa, and for the most part, they're right. I've heard all the jokes about farmers and cornfields and how the letters of Iowa stand for I oughta win around. I usually laugh about it myself, pretty much because I know it's true. But I'm a native of Iowa, and in defense of my home state, I usually tell anyone poking fun at it, there's more to this place, you just gotta know where to look. But as with anywhere in the world, if you go looking in dark places, you just might find something there. When I was younger, me and my friends were into skateboarding. When we weren't playing skateboarding games on our PlayStation 2, we were out skating on real boards around our small town. We would grab drinks from the local gas station, sometimes without paying for it. We thought we were so cool. It was me, Joe, and Rob. Rob was the leader of our little skateboarding gang, if you will. Rob Robbery, we called him sometimes. Mainly because he was the one who would shoplift from the gas station. Joe was our joker, making light out of even the most serious of conversations. And me? Well, I was just along for the ride, going wherever Rob told us we would be going or doing that day. One ordinary summer day, the three of us went skateboarding around town, like usual. When we were coming up on the old abandoned house on North 16th Street, Rob abruptly stopped his skateboard. Me and Joe quickly did the same. "What's going on?" I asked. Rob reached into his duffel bag and pulled out a couple of cans of spray paint and flipped me and Joe a can each. "Let's tag it up," he simply said. "People will see us out here doing this. They'll call the cops," I said. "We ain't doing the outside, bro," Rob said. "We're going inside." Instantly, I had a bad feeling about this, and I wish I had just said no and didn't give in to peer pressure. Because what happened after we went into the old vacant house on North 16th Street would change everything. Joe quickly followed Rob to a window on the side of the house. I hesitated and observed the crows sitting on the ledges of the roof. "Dusty," Rob yelled at me. "You coming?" I took a breath and reluctantly began making my way to the window Joe had already climbed into. Rob made his way in and I followed. The first thing that I noticed about the house is that it was empty, and I was expecting it to be cluttered with trash and mold on the walls. But no, the house seemed to be in a livable condition, which was strange considering the house was empty for as long as I could remember. Rob, out of the blue, thrust his foot into the wall of the bedroom, penetrating a hole instantly. Joe walked into another room and spray painted the words "fuck you" in huge black letters across the wall. Rob got to work spray painting his typical pentagrams and upside down crosses and whatever else on the walls and the floor. I hesitated to do anything other than just walk from room to room and observe. Every inch of me was uneasy, like My senses were trying to warn me somehow. Then I saw it. A door that led to the basement. "What'd you find, Dusty?" Rob said, startling me. I said nothing, as Rob opened the door to the dark cellar. "We shouldn't be here," I said. Rob gave me a confused look and said, "Stop being a pussy, man. Come on, Joe. We found the basement." Rob began making his way down the darkened staircase, and Joe passed by me, punching my shoulder as he did, and said, "Come on, man." And he descended into the darkness. I slowly made my way down, and as I reached the bottom step, the air became cold and very thick. There was a window on each of the basement walls, letting in just a dab of sunlight each. Rob and Joe got to work quickly tagging up the concrete walls. Joe spray painting a pair of boobs that looked more like a pair of butt cheeks with 2 pimples on them, and Rob was doing his usual pentagrams and upside down crosses. "Yo, Dusty," Joe yelled out at me. "These look like your mom's tits, dude." "Shut the fuck up, Joe," I quickly snapped, quite irritated. After that outburst, the mood totally changed. Joe, and especially Rob, took notice of my attitude. "The fuck's your problem?" Joe asked, stepping towards me. "You've been a buzzkill since we stepped into this place. What the hell is up with you?" I swallowed and confessed. "I don't like this house. It's creepy." Rob just scoffed at me, turned around, and started walking back to the wall he was vandalizing, when suddenly the phone in the basement began to ring. And suddenly everybody's attention was fixated on the dust-caked phone mounted to the side of the basement stairs. Every ring shook the wooden stairs and filled every corner of that basement up with noise. "What the fuck?" Rob yelled, and suddenly the basement felt colder and appeared darker than before. I reached out to the phone with the intention of answering it when Rob swatted my hand away quickly. "Are you fucking stupid?" he shouted. "Let's get the fuck out of here," Joe said, bolting up the basement stairs. But as he made it about halfway, the door slammed shut. "The fuck? Who's up there?" Joe yelled. "What the hell is going on?" Rob said, running up the stairs. He turned the knob on the door leading out of the basement, but it wouldn't open. He began ramming his shoulder into it, but it wouldn't budge. He kicked it and shouted, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Finally, I decided to answer the phone, as it hadn't stopped ringing yet. Rob and Joe looked down at me with a concerned look on their faces as I slowly put the receiver up to my ear. "Hello?" I struggled to say. And what I heard on the other end will never leave my memory for as long as I live. And whatever it was on the other end of that phone sent a shriek penetrating horror down my spine. I slammed the receiver down, and I looked over where the canning room was in the basement and saw her. I was scared stiff as she just floated there, wearing what appeared to be a white dress. And then what happened next utterly destroyed me. There was a strong, cold breeze that blew past me and seemed to grab Rob by his foot, who was still standing there, and dragged him down the stairs, screaming. And he just screaming. And Joe just collapsed on the steps right there by the sheer horror of watching his friend getting dragged off by some invisible force. As Rob was being dragged past me, he held out his hand, reaching out for me. I tried. I really did, but I was frozen. Rob then disappeared into the pitch black canning room, where the door slammed shut and whipping noises followed, and his screams penetrated our ears. And finally, it all just went quiet. The door to the old canning room began to creak open again for what seemed like an hour. Nothing had happened, and nothing could be heard other than my loud breathing and Joe crying with his face buried into his knees. And then suddenly another cold breeze shot out of the canning room again, and this time it grabbed Joe and dragged him down the stairs, much like it had with Rob. And Joe's tear-filled eyes, now filled with fear, were staring dead into mine as he was being dragged past me, headed to the canning room. Seeing Joe's eyes somehow like that got me to snap out of the vegetative state I was in. I grabbed Joe's hand and began pulling him away. What turned into a tug of war between me and this phantom, or whatever the hell it was. Then suddenly, it lunged out at me, sticking its face directly into mine. A gust of cold air, stronger than anything I've ever known in my whole life, ripped my grip on Joe's hand and sent me flying to the opposite side of the basement. The canning room door slammed shut once again. Even in my disoriented state, I could hear Joe screaming, and the god-awful sound of whips cracking and tearing into flesh. Joe's screams stopped. The whipping noises slowly ceased. I just laid there, on that cold and damp cellar floor, bleeding and fading in and out of consciousness. I was sure this was it. My young life was going to come to an end so early, much the same way Rob and Joe's just had. I could hear the canning door creak open again, and that's when everything went to black. I awoke in the hospital. I was alive. But I was being grilled by the police almost the second I woke up. They wanted to know what we were doing in that house and how I ended up on the lawn. And they wanted to know where the bodies of my friends Rob and Joe were. I just locked up. I had no answers to any of their questions. None that they would believe anyway. I was later informed that the blood found in the basement of that house were identified as Joe and Rob's, but the bodies had just disappeared. The lawyers told me that my silence was only going to incriminate me further, and that I needed to explain the finer details of what happened. But what would I say? Who would believe the truth? Nonetheless, I kept my silence, and I was sent to a juvenile detention center until I had become a legal adult. For years, the story of how I murdered my two friends followed me. For years, I wondered why the phantom in the basement of the old abandoned house on North 16th Street let me live. For years, I just took it all in, bottled it up. Today, I've been released. Today, I'm going back to my small Iowa town. Today, I have finally told the world what really happened. Tonight, I'm going back to that house. Tonight, I'm going to walk inside and burn it to the ground. Because I know she's still there.